think we are starting to be live. Just push some more buttons here. All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Let me
Questions are already coming in.
show you guys our faces here. Hey. All right. I think we're good.
Cool. Well, good morning. Welcome to the 034 Motorsport Live chat, episode number
104.
104. This is a Q&A session, ask us anything style session. Typically, we talk about 034 Motorsport products and services. Feel free to ask about anything automotive in general, which is what most people ask about. But we're happy to chime in on virtually any topic. We take a no BS approach to responding, and we try to be as fact-based as possible, although we will express our opinions as well. And everyone's welcome to those.
Yep. We've got them. You've got them.
Yeah. And we don't mind diving into controversial topics, heated, age-long debates. Happy to jump in there too. So just put your question in to whatever formats or social media thingamajig you're on.
Yeah, we're currently on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So whichever you
must be watching from one of those.
Prefer. Yep, you're obviously on one of them, but if you like another one better, we're those three.
Mm-hmm. And don't be alarmed. We're not TikToking or Snapchatting. Your questions are coming in here. I use my phone. And
Yep.
Nate has a laptop, so he's kind of like Baba Booey on Howard Stern. You know, they're always, or is it Jackie? I forget. I like saying Baba Booey better. But they're
doing stuff.
Yeah, Jackie's doing the sound effects. You know, he's not.
Yep. I'm also turning all the knobs and keeping the stream running here.
Does Fred do that?
Fred does a lot of sound.
Oh, Fred does sound effects. Yeah,
I'm sound effects.
Yeah.
All right. So
well, who's the producer? That's Bubba.
Gary.
So the producer.
all right. So I'm both Fred and Buffy.
Gary.
You don't make.
What's the other one?
You don't make a lot of.
Or you Robin too.
Production manager. Whoever turns on the cameras and
At least you're not Beetlejuice.
stagehand.
You're the same size as 3 Beetlejuices. All right. Nick just lost it. All right. Let's jump into the first question here, and we can go from there. Hey, I just got the Stage 1 tune for my B9 3.0 T and wondering what is the max E level can mix on the 93 tune. I was thinking E35, but wanted to ask. P.S. Loving the tune. Came from a JB4. Oh my God, the difference. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's good.
I mean, we don't recommend any level of e-blending. I know a lot of people do.
The tune is for 93 octane pump gas.
Yeah. So what happens when the more and more ethanol you start blending, your base fuel trims, your base fuel, calculations are going to be off. That can cause issues when cold starts or times before the oxygen sensors are online. If the ethanol content's moving around, away from what the ECU is expecting, and it's not the same as your long-term fuel trims and whatnot are, that can cause some issues. So we don't typically recommend it. I know plenty of people run it. We don't have a number we've tested to because again, we don't calibrate for that. So
I mean, theoretically, you could increase the octane some amounts and get a little bit more timing.
Yep.
But we don't recommend it because it's a 93 octane tune. If it was an E35 93 octane tune, then we would recommend doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, the reason we don't typically do that either is like if you've got access to ethanol that you're blending it, just run the E85 file. It's you get all of it. It's going to be all of the better, all of the powers. So yeah, that's kind of why we don't generally specify an E-mix file unless there's a limitation we're working around as far as fuel delivery or something like that.
So this is like asking the inventor of the chocolate chip cookie, can I add more chocolate chips to it? And I think the response is, well, you can. it may or may not be better. We don't for a reason. So yeah, just be careful But we don't have a recommendation. Our recommendation is no E, just 93. Kind of rhymes too. That could be like a shirt.
It's just with a chocolate chip on the back.
So I have a SQ5 2014. This is like the when he goes to the bars and he's like, "Hey, so I have an SQ5 2014." He's like, it's like his pickup line.
That's the icebreaker.
Yeah.
I don't.
But that's
you
what
tried it.
feels like.
Oh, I guess yours is what 2018. So
Sleep.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how it's worked. What are the best bolt-on? Oh, this is getting better. You should definitely go to a bar and say this to all the women.
yeah.
What are the best bolt-on to get maximum performance?
The first thing's not a bolt-on; it's a
Strap-on?
To further the analogies, it's a flash.
Oh, okay. Right.
But
It's
yeah,
flash.
I mean, you can flash your SQ5. It was stage one software, ECU and transmission. That's going to be the best bang for the buck right out of the gate.
Yes, do the flash.
Next up, yeah,
And then there are some bolting and pressing things that you could do
There are.
with release.
maximum performance. Then I'd say intake, intercooler setup, that heat exchanger are going to be those three, and you'll be in a really good starting level to then really start turning up the dial. And then from there, I'd say it's going to depend on what fuel you've got and what you're going to be doing with this thing, but put a pulley on it. The lower pulleys are very common to just bolt on
And
it.
it depends what kind of performance you're talking about. For as far as handling, we do have dynamic plus lowering springs for that car. We have a rear sway bar. We have end links. Does the X brace?
Yes.
Yeah, X brace. So go look at our catalog. Everything that we offer is for a reason. But I would say the springs and sway bar are going to be the first thing that really give you the best bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And then on the power side, Nate's done a good job of some.
And then inserts are going to be more of a not necessarily like more performance straight line acceleration, but they're going to give you some more feedback driving it.
Yeah.
All the drivetrain inserts and diff mount inserts and that kind of thing. Yep.
Someone's asking us to speculate about PureTurbo issues. I'm not familiar with them, and I don't think we have anything to say on that.
No, there's a question to was it due to hardware issues or because everyone at the time was running JV4? We have no idea. We're not going to guess what someone else was.
That's just pure speculation. We have nothing to say, much less it would be bad for us to make something up.
Just making up things. So no, we're not in the habit of just putting opinions out there that aren't backed by anything.
Hey, just want to say I'm running the B9 Stage 3 E85 tune, and this thing is a fucking blast. Thank you guys. Can't wait for what's next. Very good to hear.
Thanks.
It's fucking awesome. Which kind of parlays into our fuck inflation set.
It does.
Yeah. Is there potential for log tuning for B9 S4 METH E85 tune?
It sounds like you're asking for us to kind of custom tweak a file for your METH install. That's not something we generally will do. We can certainly look at your logs and see, give you just like a health check and some feedback. That's something we will do, but we don't dial it or change any knobs based on your METH install on your setup. You can.
Yeah, we don't use that for custom tuning. This is a support tool. Someone's asking, according to dyno charts from Vaguh,
It's pronounced
Vaguh.
Oh, Vaguh.
It's pronounced Vaguh.
Vaguh YouTube channel. Stage 3 B9 from IE spools quicker and torque curve is nicer than 034. Why is that so? So I did see this video this week, and I nothing against Vaguh or whatever the guy's name is who's making this video. We talk a lot about science and the scientific process and isolating variables and testing. And, while he went to a dyno and supposedly flashed both cars the same day on the same dyno or whatever, it's really hard to say anything conclusively. And I would say this if the results were flipped as well.
Yeah.
No. There's no boost So he didn't do a boost tap for some reason in the dyno. And so boost is not overlaid. If the IE tune is running 2 more pounds of boost than our tune, that would explain any power differences. If the IE boost curve is coming up faster and harder than ours, then that could possibly explain some of the differences. But
There's also
there's no boost.
Yeah, without any data, and this is a really tough one to. Again, if it were flipped,
Can I just finish?
yeah.
Let me make a couple points
Yeah,
before you jump in. The second thing, as far as spooling up faster, again, when you floor it on a dyno, determines how the turbo spools up. So if on the IE run he floored it at 2,000 RPM, but on our run he floored it at 2,200 RPM, very close difference. But all of a sudden now our spool up, or the 034 published one, will just be delayed by 200 RPM because the turbo doesn't start spooling until you floor it. You could slowly rev the engine up to 3,000 RPM and then floor it, and it would look like the boost doesn't come up until 3,500 RPM. That wouldn't be accurate either. So this is an interesting tidbit. It's like watching reality TV. It's by no means a proper experiment that's isolating all the different variables and differences. We don't know what the air temp is, if humidity changed, if the straps were changed, and there's all these other variables that we just don't know. So, I mean, the reality is both, as he says, both perform very close to each other. I think our power curve is within 1 or 2% of the IE1. And the spool up does look suspicious, like it just was floored later. But again, we don't have, he gives virtually no information. And so we just don't know. I also know that I've heard a rumor that he's also sponsored by IE, and IE has paid him money to make videos. He makes it look pretty equitable. I mean, he's definitely not a shill for anyone in the video, and I think his conclusion is they're both really good tunes and they're both right there.
Yep.
And anyone could get either one and be really happy. But as far as like making definitive statements, like their tune makes more power than ours, or their tune we don't know that.
Yeah, and I think he's also come out and said like they're right there with each other. Like it's.
But the problem is he put out this information, so whatever he says, whatever he qualifies, that dyno chart now goes around, and there's this idea now that their tune makes more power than ours. It's possible that IE's choosing to run more boost, and we didn't do that because we're trying to maintain some level of safety and margin of safety.
Right, and that's we talk about that a lot. It's all about the compromises and balancing what you're willing to work.
And you're talking about you're not the difference of 15 or 20 horsepower when you're up in the 700 horsepower range. It's basically minimal. I mean, you're not going to feel 20 horsepower at 700 horsepower. So, it is what it is. Yep. But I'm hoping that it wouldn't have been a lot more work for him to just add a few more pieces of data and information to this, and to try to be a little bit more, like if he showed in the video that both cars at 2,000 RPM get floored in the same exact way, and then he could provide maybe like a trace and a log that shows, that would be the right way to do it. And then adding boost. I don't know why boost isn't on there. So boost explains the power differences for sure.
And then to your point earlier, like how the vehicle was basically how the run was initiated on the dyno is a huge factor. When we do all of our comparisons and our data collection on dyno data, it's a process, and we have a pretty nailed down routine, depending on what we're doing. But we have generally a couple of throwaway runs at the beginning as temperatures get up and equalize, and then we do timed basically gaps between each run, and then we are sure to bring the motor up and start at exactly the same RPM for each run, because all of these things will just muddy the data if you're not exactly the same every time. And I don't know what the conditions were that and what practices they were using at this time.
Well, we don't. I don't think
that's the challenging part. Is it's just speculation.
If there were those if there were those efforts, he would have said in the video. And this is, you can look this up. I mean, it's called isolating variables. If flooring it at a different RPM will influence the boost onset, then the boost onset is what's in the flooring it is what's influencing the boost onset. You're not capturing the turbo's performance.
Yeah.
The only way you could do that is by isolating all the variables. So that means the only thing that's different is the tune. But if you start changing other things like the temperature, when you floor it, how the car is loaded, all these other things, then what the turbos are is now muddied by what all the other things are, and you're no longer isolating. So, and that's one of the biggest challenges in doing these kind of comparisons is isolating the variables properly.
Yeah.
Doing it is hard. Even knowing what to do, like to be able to think critically enough to know, like, these are all the variables that influence this outcome.
Right.
So how do we lock all these, if we even can? And I don't think any of that thinking was done.
Yeah, well, and it's
no offense to him or anything.
And it's
I think he just has a casual enthusiast YouTube channel. He advertises that he's doing scientific studies.
Right,
so
right. And
I think that's why anyone should take these things as with casual interest.
Yeah. And it's one of the factors that makes comparisons like this so hard. Is if you want it done in the most like a scientific engineered manner, it's up to generally one of the tuning houses that's developing one of these platforms. But then you have to then trust that they're going to be completely unbiased and with a review like that, which is then politically muddy enough.
Okay, well, let's transition to the next question, which is more of a comment.
Yeah.
It's 2 rocket ship emoticons, and it says, okay, 034 stage 3 TTE 710 is absolutely insane. This B9 SQ5 is a rocket ship. Phenomenal job. However, the stock motor mounts won't hold for long. Okay. Well, hang in there with the motor mounts. We will have our S4 density line mains out soon. And great to hear that you're enjoying the tune. It is fast, and I believe that the IE tune is good and fast too. I don't know how much boost they're running, or how safe their tune is, but we can only speak for our own. It's optimized for the power it's making, and it's going to be very safe and problem free, which is the goal here. Regarding B9 3.0 T Stage 2 tune, due to minimal performance gain from an upgraded downpipe, would you consider modifying the required hardware list to show stock downpipe is acceptable?
No.
Well, then there's literally no reason to run Stage 2.
And this is where
Why would where is the confusion here?
This is coming about because EPL had stage 2 stock downpipe, and now all these guys
What does that mean, Stage 2 stock?
they called stage 2 They made a file called stage 2,
Which is higher performance than Stage 1?
with still a stock downpipe and intercooler.
But in the industry, when you're doing tuning for a turbo vehicle, the standard nomenclature, which is just everyone has agreed to casually, is that Stage 1 is with the factory cat, Stage 2 is a high flow cat or test pipe. And so that our nomenclature follows that industry standard, commonly accepted terminology. EPL apparently did some weird stuff, and they're no longer in business. So the only reason you would run our Stage 2 is to support a racing cat or test pipe for racing and off-road purposes. Our Stage 1 is the same tune, optimized for the factory cat.
Yeah.
So if you try to run the Stage 2 file, which is optimized for a high flow cat, with our stage, with the factory cat, then that's a combination that we don't advertise or support. So if you want to run the factory cat, you run Stage 2. If you have a high flow cat or test pipe and you're racing, run Stage 2.
Yeah, and Stage 1's tricky. I think some of the confusion is when we do this testing, it's done with the required hardware on the vehicle. So which Stage 1 is going to be stock intake, stock intercooler. It's a much less modified vehicle than what you could run on a Stage 1 vehicle, which would be full intake, intercooler, the rest of the recommended mod, basically what we list. So we would basically have to dyno like every iteration up through to kind of show independently with all the octanes what you'd get, which is pretty tough to, and kind of confusing, I think, for a lot of people to look at.
But I think all this stuff's clearly explained on our product pages. So regardless of what EPL did, we're a totally different company. So just come and read our documentation, and everything you need to know is there.
Yeah. And yeah, we've said it over and over again, like the stage 1 to stage 2 difference is very minimal once you've got all the other supporting mods.
Mm-hmm. BMW 340i or B9 3.0T. I'd go for the B9 3.0T and with the option to go stage 3. I think that's really exciting. I've driven our 340i a lot. It's a really nice car out of the box. I really like Quattro. I like being able to throw a car into the corner and apply the power like that. The 340i is a nice car. I'm just not crazy about the BMW ecosystem either. Like the driving experience. They say it's the ultimate, or they used to say that.
They did.
But to me, it's foreign and difference.
Yeah, I think our comfort.
I really like the B9 stuff. They're really nice cars. And I think interior finish is so much better too. Will there be a sale for tunes anytime soon? We never announce our sales before they're live, so we that's not something we talk about. Need help. I installed 034 springs on my 17 GTI with DCC, kept everything else stock, and I'm getting heavy clanking from the front driver's side. Any suggestions? No.
That's impossible to diagnose.
It sounds like you screwed something up.
It sounds like something's loose. It is really tough to get a proper torque on the top. Basically the nut that lives down inside here.
Clanking?
I mean, that the strut will move around. Yeah. And, who knows? Maybe the spring wasn't seated properly in the spring.
The only suggestion is go in there and nut and bolt everything and make sure you installed everything correctly. And maybe take it to a mechanic if you can't figure it out.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's virtually impossible to diagnose in this medium.
Mm-hmm. Did y'all release the 3.0T inlet pipe yet? Not yet. You will know it. They're coming.
Yep.
Is it recommended to use a different weighted oil after going stage 3 for the B9?
This comes up like every week.
No. But you just added some horsepower. Nothing is fundamentally changed about your engine.
Yep. We are running. Yeah, we haven't changed up the spec oil we're running in our car at all.
Why does 034 only offer a rear sway bar for the B8 platform and not a front? So we talk about this a lot. The B8 and these Audi sedans, they push from the factory really bad. And so by offering only the rear bar and not stiffening up the front bar, we're able to shift the handling attitude to much more to oversteer, especially during off throttle and trail braking conditions. And by stiffening up the front bar, we would just put push back in the car. So we went to market with only the rear bar, again, to maximize how the car turns and putting the priority on that. The only thing that you're giving up is you're getting less flatness from turning. So a front bar would increase how flat the car feels when it goes through a corner. However, it will cause the car to push more. So we opted to prioritize the driving dynamic and experience as far as handling goes, and less about how it feels when you turn the wheel when you're well within the limit of traction.
Yeah,
we may come out with a front bar in the future for people who don't drive the car at the limit, who are more concerned just about how it feels, cruising around town.
For a very long time, we only did rear bars for everything.
Yeah,
because the Audis are very push
for
Audis from the factory.
But once we started getting into the MQB cars, those handle much more like a front-wheel drive car, and so we went a different way and created a whole front and rear bar setup that's designed together, and we get those cars to handle very well too, to get those cars to turn. So it's a very different car than the typical Audi sedan, the bigger chassis stuff. Stage 185 on my RS3 is insane. Thanks, guys. Great to hear. Great feedback today. It's good. What is the big SQ5 part on the table there? Guess we could talk about that. So speaking of sway bars, this is our new
Nick should talk SQ5.
Yeah, this is our new SQ5 sway bar package. So we have done a front and rear bar setup. That car is big and heavy and really needs the additional a lot more sway bar than what it came with. And honestly, this sway bar package on an SQ5 transforms the car. I mean, completely. And this is for the B9 SQ5. Completely transformative. It substantially reduces the body roll. It does finally make the car drive, more like a sports sedan. It's still not a sports sedan, but it makes it drive more like that. Gives it that type of driving feel and attitude.
Yep.
And the car does become much faster around corners too with this setup. And so we will be releasing these in about a week or two. I think this is the first set of bars that we got in from our U.S. manufacturer, and the rest of the production run is being completed as we speak. So very excited to release this. I think we're the only company on the market that supports the SQ5 with anything like this. No? There's some stuff out there? Okay. Well, this I believe is the best, most well-engineered setup of anything that's out there.
The most track-oriented, performance-oriented.
Performance-oriented for street and track. Great setup. So keep your eyes peeled for these. Again, it's going to be about a week or two, and we'll be ready to start shipping these. Curious how much vacuum you have on the wastegate at wide open throttle for B9 as stage 3 files.
As much as we need. I'm not sure what metric they're looking for there. It's not a static number. I mean, these are vacuum up.
It's closed loop
vacuum actuated gates, but it's all closed loop and modeled, and it's going to vary quite a bit depending on where you're at power band, what kind of engine transition dynamic stuff's going on, ambient temperature, all the things that manipulate how fast the turbo spins. The gate's going to move around for it.
Notice my headliner is sagging in the rear driver's side today. Should I part it out, buy a B9, or deal with a floppy headliner?
You got to get rid of that.
What kind of car?
The B8.5.
B8.5?
B8.5? Oh man!
I mean, that's pretty easily repairable. If you just, if you can take your headliner out and use some 3M spray adhesive, you can stick that back on. But this used to be a big problem with older Audis.
I like every
like 80s and 90s Audis all did that. But if that's your excuse for buying a nicer, newer car, then I'm all for it. RS5 turbo power gain guesses. I know it's impossible. I'm just excited to think of potential. Well, the turbo system that we will start with initially is the TTE 720.
Yep.
And so I figure we should be seeing around 700 to 720 crank on E85 type blends or options. So. And the stock turbos are what? 550
power output
at the same.
Yeah, thereabouts. I mean, we're doing
yeah. So we're looking at 100 to 150 more horsepower with the TTEs, and what we're seeing is similar response to the factory. Not a lot laggier, definitely laggier, but not a lot. So it is exciting. Be excited.
Yes,
very, very, very exciting. Those cars have a ton of potential. B9 S5, I'm wondering if you guys could describe technically at a high level what the auto drive modes do at the ECU. I've never found documentation describing what they actually do.
I mean, the ECU doesn't really have an auto mode. That's we're talking transmission stuff here. So there's a whole nother control unit, whole nother language that it's speaking that's controlling the transmission and how it shifts. There's a little bit of mode intercommunication between them. More so is they call it the charisma mode, or what kind of driving style.
What is that
you're looking for? Oh god, it's some terrible name.
I'd like to hear you try to say it.
But it's that's going to be your dynamic versus comfort. But when they're in auto, I mean, the transmission computer is essentially entirely in charge of things. It gets data from the ECU to know where like your pedal positions are, how much load, and how much torque the ECU is making. Obviously, engine RPM, that kind of thing, is correlated with ECU, but the actual shifting and shift strategy and all that is pretty much all dependent on the transmission computer, with the exception of some stuff where like if the ECU is warming, if the engine's warming up and the ECU has a reduced rev limiter because of that or something of that nature, the transmission has to work with that. But yeah, outside of that, everything's in the transmission. There's a bunch of tables where the Audi engineers spent a bunch of time trying to figure out what was best for most people, and then they specify the upshift and downshift points based on that, and those are your auto modes.
Cool. All right, that's exciting.
Super exciting.
Can you make a B9 3.0T boost tap for analog gauges?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an easy spot on those manifolds because you got to go post throttle body.
Be a good mark project.
Yeah.
Well, engineering department.
Yep.
We'll put on the list. And you're right. We're just talking about doing boost taps, so that should be something that we can.
Yeah, there were a couple of people chiming in. They like grab some spots on the right side. Well, basically the left side of the engine. Yeah, I think you've got to.
Are B9 3.0T rest of the world vehicles supported for stage 3?
B9 3.0T vehicles, yes, I believe those are
Like the
they're non-GPF.
GPF.
Yeah, as long as it's not a GPF vehicle, we're good to go on those.
Let me clean up some other questions.
Oh, yep, got it.
I noticed some body twisting flex in my B9 S5 coupe traveling in and out of steep driveway approaches. Are these cars a wet noodle without chassis stiffening? I don't think so. I mean, this used to be a big problem. Older cars, but
I mean, you're probably
here's marvel at how good new cars. So here's what I would tell you to do: go pull into a driveway and kind of get into the most twisted up spot you can get, and then park it, turn on the e-brake or whatever, and then open your door. If your door opens and shuts easily, the car is not twisting. In like say a 1980s Audi, you would not be able to open the door. You'd have to like knock it open with your shoulder, and then you try to slam it shut, and it just wouldn't shut because the car would just literally twist that much.
Yeah, even putting like one of those cars on a lift, just just changing where it's being supported from the wheels to a foot forward on a lift.
You could a lift or a jack, jack up the back of the car. But I mean, like an Audi 4000, you could put a jack in front of the rear tire and jack it up, and the front of the car would just be like still on the ground with the back tire off the ground because the car would just like droop and twist. New cars, you jack it up and the whole side of the car goes up, because it's so much stiffer.
I mean, you're probably hearing some creaking or something, or like just the panels. Yeah, there's going to be some flex, but wet noodle is a pretty far.
So let's spend a minute talking about this. Chassis stiffening products in general are bullshit. Okay, so if let's say your given car that you have has excess chassis flex under the conditions you were talking about, going into a driveway, there's really nothing anyone can do to stiffen up that chassis aside from installing a roll cage or something incredibly expensive and obtrusive. Now, we do create some what I would call suspension stiffening products where we do strut braces, which stiffens the area between the struts and the front suspension because there's some flex there. We do an undercar brace for the B8 cars because the factory brace flexes. So, we and other engineering companies are able to create solutions, very specific, isolated areas to create stiffening, but stiffening the chassis as a whole is not something that's easy to do. You could take a look at what the manufacturers do on convertible cars, for example. Not, when you cut the roof off a car, you remove a tremendous amount of rigidity and box stiffening from the chassis. And so not only does the factory go in and greatly strengthen the frame rails with additional sheet metal and other, triangulation devices, they also go under the car and add these big steel straps and kind of put the car under tension so that if it tries to twist, these these members act like they go under tension. If the car tries to twist in any direction, one of those members tightens up and helps prevent the twisting. And even then, most factory convertibles do drive like a wet noodle.
Yeah,
despite all these efforts.
Comparatively, they're all softer and generally as heavy or heavier than their counterparts due to all the added structure they're trying to put in there to stiffen it up.
You can go through our catalog. You'll see that we don't sell a lot of we don't sell any chassis stiffening product. Nothing that If the terminology of chassis stiffening is used, we need to update that because we do not sell any products that update the stiffness of the chassis. And you should be wary of any other companies that do too. You can go on eBay. There's all these like chassis stiffening members and tubes you can bolt in the car.
The whole like tunnel brace stuff.
The tunnel brace stuff. It all does nothing.
It mounts like heat shield bolts.
It's snake oil. It does nothing. So just be wary of that. Specifically, though, there are parts of the car that can be stiffened up, not the chassis, but suspension components or isolated areas of the car, and that's where you can get some good stuff. Now, I'll give the additional caveat of like there's lots of strut braces on the car on the market that they're so flexy and soft that other than bolting onto the car and adding more weight and looking maybe cool, they don't have enough structural integrity to actually do anything. Yeah, and I'd say like at least half on the market are like that.
Yeah, more I think, but it's triangulating and really locking down something like a suspension component or a strut tower. Takes a lot more than just two bolts in the same plane.
Yeah, or a flexi little carbon fiber, tube or something like that. Or there's this DIY mod on the market where you go to Home Depot and you buy like a piece of aluminum tubing and you bolt it to the back of the firewall. I mean, it's just you could literally take that tube and bend it over your knee. You telling me that's going to stiffen up the thousands of pounds swinging around in your car? So it's just extra weight. All right. These are related to the 2.9 TT, specifically the RS5 Sportback. Have you found the stock oil cooler to be sufficient? And 2, will you be making a catch can for it? 3, any chance of a ResX? Yes. So stock oil temps do not appear to be a problem on any new Audi.
They get high, but not. We haven't had any issues with.
Well, they raise or they increase, but it's still well within a range that's acceptable. And we talk about this a lot. You want your oil to be a minimum optimal temperature, which sounds really hot. It's typically hot enough to make water boil and evaporate out of the fluid. And that's why the coolant system and boiling system are typically linked thermally to, either put excess heat into the coolant system or have the coolant system put heat into the oil. But under no conditions do you want to be driving around with 150 degree oil, 150 degree Fahrenheit oil. That will actually ruin your car. So, having oil temps in the 220 to 350 degree range is perfectly acceptable with today's modern synthetic oils. Could you, put an oil cooling system to always keep it at 230 degrees? Yes. Is there any benefit in doing that? I don't think so. So, modern synthetic oil can withstand really high temperatures. And then, yes, we are doing a catch can for that. It will be out at some point. We're still testing it. And I do believe we're working on a ResX for that as well.
Yep. I believe things last week happened.
Was that for the RS5?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. I saw the SQ5. We're also doing an SQ5 ResX. Does your new SQ5 sway bars also work on the Q5? Yes, I'm sorry. This is a Q5 specific product. If it's the SQ5 is just a Q5.
Anything Q5s.
Sorry. You can even buy a Q5 with a 3.0 T.
Not B9.
Not in the B9.
Follow up on that last one. Asking a bunch of questions.
Regarding wastegate vacuum values for stage 3, if you don't know any numbers off the top of your head, can you at least tell me if your tune changes the N75 value or has it been left factory?
It's definitely changed. A lot of things there changed.
This is completely different turbo.
Yeah, around the boost control.
Yeah.
Almost ground up calibration with how the strategy works on those ECUs.
Yep.
Yeah, the factory mapping on almost anything boost control related is going to leave you high and dry.
Yeah, that would be
You're
that would be
you're not going to have a good time with it.
Is there going to be an access port for flashing specifically for octane flashing quicker? Possibly in the future, anything's possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not in the near term.
I don't know that we're going to do. I mean, I'm speaking off the cuff here, but I don't know that we're going to do a separate hardware component for that. It would most likely be integrated to like a smartphone or something. Everybody carries now. The access port kind of came along in the days where that wasn't a thing, and it just continued with that path.
Start making parts for the Volkswagen Cabriolet Mk1.
Start making.
Oh my god, dude!
We start so many of those,
dude. I was like one of the founders of Cabriolet Mk1 performance products in the early '90s.
Those
mid
'90s chassis stiff.
Those needed
those
chassis
could use
stiffening.
chassis stiffening, yeah. But that came in the form of a roll cage to get many stiffer. So.
Yeah. I helped to develop this. It was a series of tubes that connected all 4 subframe points together because the back of the subframe was just open and would just flex like wet noodle. But now I went back in my New Dimensions days. We developed the whole ND turbo systems, which many cabriolets got turbocharged motors in them, 1.8 or 1.8 swaps with turbos, putting out like 200 horsepower. Those are ridiculous. 8 valve, 1.8.
Not like a 1.8T from like a
no. This was the 1.8T was not even an egg in anyone's ovary at that time. But you're talking about a 1,600-pound cabriolet, which is literally it's like riding a cardboard box of stiffness.
Sorry.
Like a flat cardboard box that's been flattened, and they came with like 80 horsepower.
Oh, if you get the spicy one. Yeah.
Well, all the Mark Ones came with a solid lifter of 1.6.
You get
which was like
you can get the TDI,
horsepower.
it's like 48 horsepower or something like that.
No, it was just a DI.
Or oh god, yeah, that's right.
And it wasn't even D.
Yeah.
It wasn't even direct injection. It was just a diesel, and those made like 50 horsepower. But imagine taking an 80 horsepower, 1,600-pound car and giving it 200 horsepower and like 250 foot-pounds of torque. Yep. Insane. Nothing by today's standards, but you're just talking about like, I think those had like four-speed manuals in some of them. But you're just talking about like just smoking the tires in every gear all the way up. So yeah, definitely have been there and done that a long time ago, but we've moved on.
Yeah, there's not many of them left. It's tough to...
I think they call them bitch baskets now, actually.
Isn't that the old
Sorry,
cabbie?
Jason Camisa, but...
That's exactly what he calls it.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Mark 1? Just the straight up Mark 1?
Mark 1 Cabriolet.
The cabbie.
Because lots of bitches rode them, and it looks kind of like a basket. So he seems to have fun with his. His has a 2-liter 16 valve in it. So I mean that's actually the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that thing's probably putting in 140, 150 horsepower, revs to 7,500 RPM. Those are fun. Actually, I think one of the funnest cars I've ever driven and owned would be a Mark II 2-liter 16 valve with all the stuff on it.
Yep.
Springs, sway bars,
Yep.
chassis stiffening.
We had back in my autocross days in Maine, there was one that was known as the cheerleader. But
the car is so tossable, light, fast, quick, fun. Not too fast.
Yep.
It's quick, not fast at all. But just the right amount of wheel spin. You put a diff in it. You really can't there's no car like that anymore.
And you get the sensation of like really fast performance driving, but you're doing like 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, if you're doing like 95 in one of those, it feels like $150. And like one of these new Audis, you just like a B9, you could be doing the RS5, you could be doing 150 miles an hour, just like no big deal. And when you're in Mexico.
Allegedly.
SuperDuper for the B8.5 SQ5s. Yes, it's coming. No direct ETAs, but I think we're waiting on the hose. It's just a different hose. sometimes you just don't know how long hose take.
Yep.
Sometimes they say 5 minutes. Sometimes it ends up 2 hours.
Long time.
Thanks for the help and support, guys. I love what you guys do. You're welcome. We love doing it.
You're supporting. Yeah.
Thank you for
the support.
Yeah. Thank you for helping us do what we love. We get to come to work every day and do car stuff and build and create things, which to me, you know, I'm in my late 40s and I still think, you know, I've been married, I've had kids, I've had jobs, I've bought and sold companies, I've done all the things, you know, when you're younger, you could dream of doing. And to me, still the most incredible things in life is designing, building, and creating things.
Yep.
I built speakers as a side hobby, and this weekend I finished probably the best, most ambitious set of speakers I've ever built, and I was listening to them afterwards, and you know, there might be a few tweaks, but you know, you go through all the work. I do all the testing, measurements, I do modeling, and I was just sitting there listening to "Money for Nothing" by Money for Nothing and Your Tricks for Free.
Kicks for free. Yeah.
Not Your Tricks for Free.
No, I was.
But you know, I'm just sitting there listening to this Dire Straits, and which I've heard the song a million times, and I'm just, and it's literally the best I've ever heard it. Any speaker system I've ever heard, and I'm just sitting there. I was just marveled that I came up with this idea. And this was actually a concept that I created with my friend Jeff, who died a few years ago. So I'm kind of emotional about this project because this was our last project that we were going to co-design and I would build. And he died of COVID like in April of 2020. But I'm just sitting there listening to this song that sounds incredible, and it just struck me in that moment that this concept, this idea, the initial modeling and design, then testing, additional measuring, and then wood and metal and magnets and glue, screws, oil and wax and aluminum and rubber and paper and all this stuff. And then I took all those materials and then, I don't know, 300-400 hours of labor and work, tens of thousands of steps. And I'm sitting here listening to this amazing song, you know, being moved in a way that I'll never have. You know, it's just like all that comes together. And that's what you get from building, designing, and creating. And that's what we get to do every day. So for me, it's still one of the most exhilarating things in life. If I had to pick one thing to do for the rest of my life, it might just be that. But that's why we do what we do. This is much more than a job for us. Thankfully, we make a good living as well doing it, which is why we're so lucky. But this is what we like to do. And when it comes to, I've had the same experience with our products. You know, I've buying a Volkswagen or an Audi and designing all the products, and testing, and engineering, and welding, and casting, and molding, machining, CADing, calipering, you know, modeling, and you know, and then 3D printing, and then you get everything made and you make everything, and then you put it all in a car. And then I'm going through turn 2 at Thunder Hill at 110 miles an hour. You know, like it's incredible, and it just kind of hits you like all that work, all that effort, all that knowledge, all that skill results in this ethereal experience, which is just, you know, drawing these emotions. So we're very lucky. If you have the chance to I think for a lot of guys out there, it's probably resonating with what I'm saying. But if you have a chance to build and create in your life, I strongly recommend it. I don't think it's one of the most satisfying, fulfilling things I think you can do.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have lots of, you know, kind of pinch me moments here. So
yeah,
coming to work every day.
All right. Hey guys, I just got my flash tool and hooked it up, and the box isn't lining up or anything. Is that due to a faulty box, or am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, you need to contact tuning at
Tuning
from
at-
Motorsport. We'll troubleshoot it for you.
Tuning at 034motorsport.com. Very unlikely that the cable's faulty.
We've seen a couple, but it's they're
Like out of 5,000, you've seen a couple, or however many. Just making up numbers.
Yep.
Integrated insurance, like 5,000. Just picked up my B9.5 RS5 Sportback. What is your take on this car on track compared to its competitors? Very fun, excellent driving car. Put our products on, get some good tires, and enjoy yourself. There's pretty much nothing at the track that's going to have more power on E5.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it really depends what kind of experience you're looking for. But
Yeah.
it's a very capable Audi. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a 1990s Miata with bolt-ons might be better, depending on what your
Depending on what
standards.
you're looking for. Yeah.
But if you're looking for a fast, fun, reliable, smooth car,
Yep.
that can out accelerate Corvettes and Mustangs, BMWs,
Yep.
then you're in a good package.
Yep.
But again, the driver. We always talk about the driver mod is the most important one, and you can do that in any car. You could do that in a 1998 Saturn, and you can become a really good driver in a stock Corolla.
Yep. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's very subjective.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of personal preference as to what they want on track.
On the B8.5 S5, is the SuperDuper compatible with any cold air intake? No. I mean, it's specifically designed for our
Well, we have an
X34 and
we have-
X34 intake.
Right. We have an intake designed for it,
Yeah.
but it's not. I mean, the throttle body's moved. It's bigger, so no, it's just necessarily. It's not going to be the same.
There's no standard airbox connector location that we could use that would standardize it, like in exhaust systems, for example, like the Cali converter or the downpipe outlet. You can standardize those spots. So if you buy our SuperDuper, you're going to want our air intake. Fortunately, it's not very expensive. We made it affordable so that people could upgrade to it. However, you might be able to adapt it too.
Yep.
We provide a hose that you could cut that hose or build a new tube, if you wanted to. But it's going to cost you at least. I think our intake's $360 or something. I mean, the whole SuperDuper kit's like 900 something.
But yeah, saying like any colder
With the intake.
intake. I mean, some are silicon all the way up. Some are this,
Yeah.
2.5-inch tube to the stock throttle body, which is going to negate anything that the SuperDuper is going to do for you anyway. So, yeah, it's not going to just bolt up to any old intake.
But get the best solution. Get the whole solution.
Yeah, and that's
if you can afford it, it's the way to go.
that's a big part of it. Is most all of those other intakes are going to be
There's some bad.
best case. They're optimized for the stock throttle body, which is going to mean
Some of them are worse than
some
stock.
of them are worse than stock.
We've actually tested some that
Yeah.
that flow less than the stock.
But it's never going to be an optimal solution for this throttle body that you're putting on a motor, which is already kind of the last little bit of gains that you're going to get in.
Okay, let's talk about this real quick. We've had questions about adding negative camber to a Mark 7, Mark 8, and we have two products currently that will allow you to add all the cambers, specifically our RCO ball joints and our camber strut mounts. So these are our Motorsport Dynamic Plus camber mounts. So if you look, this is the profile of the factory strut mount, and the factory strut mount has a hole right in the middle, and you can see our hole is down here. And so what this does is this moves the strut from the factory position in. So that essentially gives you negative camber, and just this alone is what, about 1.5 degrees?
I believe so.
1.5.
It depends on how high your car is and if you've lowered it, but figure in 1.25 to 1.6 degree range is what you're going to find for most lowered cars. So you can do that, and the benefit about this is when you do this, it moves the top of the tire in. So if you're having any kind of fender lip clearance issues, this helps that because it moves the top of the tire in away from the fender, towards the center line of the car. Then furthermore, on GTIs, Mark 7, Mark 8 GTIs, and Golf R, you can, and S3, yes, that's out. Just it doesn't fit TTRS.
There you go.
Right. So but pretty much everything is. So our RCO ball joint is different in a couple ways. So one, it gives you more camber because it's moved out. But we also drop the ball joint down from the factory position, which helps normalize the roll center for the control arm. This is very advantageous for handling, but it also gives you camber. And so this gives you about another 1 to 1.5 degrees, depending on the adjustability. So if you combine these two, you can get, anecdotally, we're seeing about 3 to 3.5 degrees using both these. Now that's a lot of camber for a street car. It's going to handle awesome. You're going to accelerate tire wear because most of your contact patch will be on the inside of the tire. So you'll have the same amount of force or wear in a smaller area. So it'll accelerate the wear. Typically, I've put a lot of miles on cars with about 1 to 1.5 degrees. And while it's slightly accelerated, it's more than acceptable. 3 to 4 degree camber, you may be replacing tires every 5,000-10,000.
Yeah, you're gonna need to rotate those quick.
You could be,
and depending on the tire, sometimes flip edges.
Now on track, it's different. On track, adding camber can actually help your tires last longer because since on track you're mostly turning and you're loading up. So when your tires load up, they actually drop flat. And if you have the right amount of camber, you're actually getting more scrubbing across the entire tire instead of on the outside of the tire, which would wear just the outside. And that's what you see on cars on track with stock alignment, is they wear the outside of the tire aggressively, typically
Right through
in a couple sections.
Yeah. You'll see cords in no time.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the ball joints, you can add the camber for the track. You can take it away on the street. So you could go from like a 1.5 to a 3 degree setup, pretty easily. You can even buy these little like camber adjusting with the air bubble setups and get it pretty close. So yeah, so that's what we have. RCO ball joints are on sale right now. 15% off while supplies last. So jump on those. And I don't know if these are.
The camsters might be.
Yeah, you can check on the site. We also have a camster which adds camber and caster. I strongly recommend as well. Actually, this is the camster. Sorry.
Yeah, and go for it.
Sorry. These are both. Okay.
Yeah.
But we haven't released this one.
That's just camber.
That's one's good for
Sorry. The caster one. Yes.
That's
Okay, so this is camber only, and this is camber caster. The camster is a great option. We have one coming that's just caster. And so you could run that with the ball joints, and then you'd have 1.5 degrees of camber with all the caster, more caster than you can get on any other setup. So, anyways, lots of options. I think our goal is just to have the nicest, most broadest solution base for MQB, front end line.
Yep.
All right, we're almost out of time. Let's see. Regarding stage 1 ECU tune, does the stage 1 with test pipes automatically tune out the O2 sensor after CAD delete? Sorry if this is a dumb question.
Oh, well, okay. So this depends on if this is a B8 S4. We do have that market is entirely different for the staging, your name and stuff. It is if it is a labeled test pipe or file, yes, for a racing catalyst or racing situation, that will set you up. It'll turn off the cat related things for those racing situations.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time.
Yep. We are wrapping up.
Great questions today, and thanks for the comments. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We will see you guys next week. Cheers.